Hey, good morning. It's Sunday. What is it, 9:30? Just about home from the hospital. And I did want to put out a brief video talking about how the week went trading and what I'll be looking for. Typically, for the most part, during the week, because I'm only doing one of these basically every week, so it's much easier. I do post support and resistances, or if I do make purchases, I will typically put them out here onto my page. Of course, I do post a lot of other stuff revolving with either politics or economics. But for the most part, I do put out a lot of information, especially during the beginning of the week, in case I come up with something new during the week. So you can feel free to follow me, of course, at Xavier Trading LLC. And talking about the beginning of the week, so we're going to go right here. Let's take a look at the portfolio for the M1. You have a current value of 78,000 with almost up 21K. So far in this portfolio. I was up a little over 21, but then of course we had that day on, I think it was Thursday, where the market fell, kind of came down over the news of Joe Biden basically raising the capital gains tax. And of course Friday we had a rally. And so for the week, all in all, we were basically up a little less than 1%, 0.86, and I think we did better than most of the market for the week. Right, so for the week, the Dow was down, the Nasdaq was down, and the SPYs were down. So okay, so portfolio doing a little bit better than expected for the day. For the month, as you can see, we'll take a look for the month so far. We're up just about 4,600, and we've accumulated roughly about just under 254 in dividends. And this is primarily a dividend account. Obviously, there is always room for growth, which is typically what my risk portion of my account is for, but overwhelmingly just about every single stock in this portfolio pays a good dividend. Usually I look for dividend stocks that are paying at least 4%. I have quite a few stocks that are paying 6, 7, and close to 8%. And that's just basically, I want a portfolio that basically does cash flow. We've got about 2,700 in cash so far. And one thing that I did want to talk about was there was a article that I read, and I was doing some MO purchases. So I had sold some of my MO. I sold about $1,500 worth of MO back here last month. So we can go over here so you can see it right here. So I have been accumulating some MO. I had sold a little bit over here. I'm not sure why I sold over here, but then of course I did make quite a few buys. I think it was probably because I bought it fairly low originally. 41s. I'm not quite sure where I sold, but we had accumulated quite a bit, and I sold about half of my position. I think I talked about this in one of my videos back in the end of March, and the reason being was because I kept seeing MO butt up against this resistance right here, and so I decided to sell a little bit. As you can see, just looking all at the overall chart, we have kind of double bottom down here at 36. And I think overall, I originally started getting long down here and then kept on averaging up. So some of the MO, 1,500 of it, was sold right here at 52.53, which is just above, which is probably right in here. Probably one of these 2 days or one of these 3 days, we ended up selling half of our position. Probably when I saw that there was a little bit of a resistance and we got a little bit of selling. And then of course we kind of based out at around 51. And then we had this huge move to the downside. And this came after some news about Joe Biden deciding to make some changes in the tobacco industry in terms of not as much nicotine or whatever it was being involved in the production of cigarettes. Now, of course, that caused the stock basically to hit the resistance, our support. Right, so you can see the port right here. That's basically where we fell off right here. And then we hit it here and then backed off. And then we finally hit the resistance at the time, and then of course that resistance now becomes our support. And so which is why I bought, because I knew it was for me it looked like a shakeout. So I rebought the 1,500 and I tossed in another 5 into MO. And so currently we have 3,000 invested in MO, and you see we're up. Where are we? Here we go. So currently we have 3,000 invested in MO. I'll probably end up buying maybe another 1,500 if I do see a retest of 45. But as you can see, currently we're at 3,000 with 5, or up 500. and I bought a little bit more of 2, and that was primarily for the dividend. Stock has not fully recovered, and I do think that real estate in the future will do well, especially with some of these schemes moving forward. We'll have to wait and see how that works out, as this particular stock has not fully recovered. It does pay an 8% dividend, and it looks fairly steady. And we've got resistance down here at 6 and 5. Basically why I got into this one, for the cash flow, for the dividend, and of course it's basically trading sideways. And typically stock, I wish I would have bought it sooner. Stocks that trade sideways, you would have been accumulating this little bit of a dividend. It currently pays 17 cents. That's basically some of the plays that I had made over the weekend. I did end up selling, I had some General Mills and Kellogg, and then I ended up selling it and buying some BTI. So BTI is also another tobacco company that gave me a little bit of diversity. So this is a British American tobacco company, and both of these stocks had a bit of a tumble. As a result, you can see the stock came all the way down to the resistance, held. As you can see, over the past couple of trading days, it's basically held the resistance, or the support, I should say. It's held the support of $38, and of course we have the 200-day moving average down here at about 36 and a quarter, which is why I felt comfortable purchasing it. And as you can see, it pays almost 8% dividend, which is why I decided I bought this both in my I bought this both here in the M1 Finance, and then I also bought it in my long-term retirement in what's it called, in my TD account. So that gave me a little bit of diversity. I felt comfortable taking on the position. IBM doing very well. I had tweeted about this. We finally saw a breach. Like I said before. We breached the 132s, and then now we're in the 140s. But our next area of resistance is right here. You should be able to see that right here at the 44s. I'm not quite sure if we are going to breach it, but as you should be able to see, at least over here during this time frame, you should be able to roughly make out that 144s, right? You can see we had a touch here for quite some time, and then again here, and then that's kind of why we backed off right here, because we hit those 44s and the stock pulled back, obviously because of the news that had when the stock pulled back on Thursday, and then Friday we saw a rally, and again another retouch of 144s. And IBM, of course, is making some moves with some other companies for new cloud businesses having to do with COVID, and they're pairing up, I believe, with Moderna or one of the other vaccine companies. I forget off the top of my head. But the reason I felt comfortable also buying more MO, and why I kind of liked MO, and I probably will push that 3,000 probably to 5,000, and maybe we'll push the BTI, the other British company, to about 2,500, is because of this article here. You're free to read it. It was an article that I had read talking about how MO is moving into the cannabis industry, and we're starting to see some of the laws change moving forward, and so that could be another source of revenue for MO. Excuse me. Coca-Cola, like I said before, I believe it was last week or the week before, where they had talked about that a lot of these companies, especially food stocks, because of supply chain issues or because of inflation, not enough people working, that individuals have their, all these companies, of course, have to raise prices. And so we've seen Coca-Cola, of course, move to the upside. Most of the stocks, as you can see, we finally breached 54s. So this might be an opportunity where I might add a little bit more to the position, more for the capital gain side. We could see a retest from 54s, so we could see around a 10 or maybe 12% move to the upside moving forward, outside of any market factors. Obviously, if there's some bad news, the market tumbles, etc., we could see, if the market continues to trade higher, we could see about a 10, maybe even 12% move and retest those 60s prior to where the stock fell. Is a little bit of a dividend, about 3%, not exactly all that exciting. I would primarily holding on to this just for that capital gains move. If I made 10 or 12%, I would just take profits on whatever I added to it. But it's not exactly something that I'm all that excited about, but it is something that I am keeping an eye on. I spoke about RIO, which was one of the plays that I had talked about RIO finally making a move to the upside. We're seeing multiple days where we're retesting these 86s. I had tweeted about this in the beginning of the week. We saw a little bit of a pullback down here to roughly about 84s, and then again a close above on the volume was okay. It was slightly below average volume. Typically when I see a breach to the upside, I want to see above average volume, like for example on this day right here where the average volume was almost 3.6, and you can see the average volume is typically around 2.7. And so a day where we see that kind of buying, we see that kind of excitement. Very similarly here, we had a huge day to the downside of 3.8, and it barely moved the stock, leading me to believe that RIO is going to move higher. We could see a retest of these 92s, and of course RIO at this price paying a 5.7 biannual dividend. I'll have to see if I was thinking of holding this for a little bit long term, at least maybe till the end of the year, maybe get a dividend and see if commodities will continue to trade higher. Everything that I have read due to supply chain constraints is leading me to believe that we will see a lot of these commodities trade higher, like for example ExxonMobil, especially as more people start to fly, more people start to travel, before maybe experiencing some form of lockdowns. Even though we've breached 56s, probably waiting for earnings, which is why the stock is basically meandering back and forth. They're probably waiting for earnings. I think they will have decent earnings, and of course I will still be holding on to Exxon primarily for the dividend. As you can see, we could retest those 62s, but the real area of concern is going to be right around here at about $65-66, which is going to be our next area of resistance for this stock. We could see the stock trade back into the 60s or into the 70s, especially if we see oil move higher. So this will be another particular play that I'll be looking at. Wells Fargo, like I said before, once we breached those 40s, that the stock was going to trade higher, and we've currently moved 10% already to the upside. So if you were paying attention to the stock, you had the opportunity to make a quick 10%. Right, so we went from 40s down here, excuse me. So we moved from the 40s all the way up to 44s. We had several days where we traded at 44s or above. And I'm waiting for the market for a close above 44s to see our next area of resistance. This is why basically the stock is holding at 44s. You should be able to see that right here. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll draw that line right there, and that lets us know where we bounced here, we bounced here, we bounced here, and then finally the stock went a little bit higher, trading into the 50s, and we saw a little bit of a stall prior to the fall right here, and then a retest where the stock tried to retest. It kind of held here at 40, tried to retest those 44s, couldn't quite make it, and then of course stock tumbled. And of course this was during the beginning of the pandemic, during the beginning of the decline, and so we're seeing a little bit of a stall. We're seeing the stock trade sideways, move up, trade sideways, move up, and so it gives you an opportunity to accumulate a little bit more shares during the sideways trading as it gets ready to move to the upside. As you can see, we're seeing some big buy volumes. Had some good news on their earnings. Obviously banks are going to be doing very well with all the money printing. And so you shouldn't be surprised to see Wells Fargo trade higher. Still not paying an amazing dividend, only 10%, but really we're long from, let's go over here, let's go look at Wells Fargo. I believe we're long from 25. I sold a little bit. I still have I sold 1/5 of my position. That's right here, Wells Fargo. And so we're still up. So I sold roughly about 21 shares worth. As you can see, that's where we're slightly below. So I did take a little bit of profit, and we'll be holding the rest moving forward to see how Wells Fargo is going to do, if there are going to be any changes, if they're actually going to reinstate either some buybacks or do increasing in their dividends. We'll have to wait and see. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen. I haven't read anything as of yet. Still holding on to stocks like Kroger. I tweeted that I was buying Peloton. I bought 1,500 of Peloton, and I bought a little bit more of X again. X Steel, I would have already sold it. This is another one that I would be waiting to get out if, as you can see, another move to the upside. So this is a particular company that I wanted. I just bought it down here. I bought it a little too early. I bought it right here at the 22s instead of patiently waiting for the pullback to the resistance, to my area of support, I should say. And I should have bought the stock down here in the teens. Instead, I was impatient and I ended up buying it. I ended up buying it here on the way down, not on the way up. I bought it on the way down right in this candle at about 22.19 or 22.9, and then the stock fell. I had multiple days, as you can see, 1, 2, 3 days where I could have bought the stock cheaper had I just been patient. And so I'm not sure exactly what had happened, but I missed the opportunity to sell as I really only wanted about 15%. The stock moved so far and then it quickly collapsed. I was not expecting this stock to collapse so quickly, but we did bounce off of basically around $21, and the stock is retesting 24. More than likely, if we move to the upside into the mid 20s, I will be selling this position, as it's not something that I'm looking to hold over the long term. It was just a short-term play that I wanted to take some capital gains on. Hopefully we will see a bit of a move to the upside. I'm not exactly up all that much, only about 7%. So I'm really looking for that move to the upside where we could see the stock trade above. And if we get back in, maybe we'll see 12%. I did add a little bit more to the position, about another $250. And so if we get out at about the mid 25s, I mean, I would have already been out of this play and just taken, the $300 off of the $1,000 that I had put into it. But it is what it is. Moving forward, still holding on to Kroger. It pays a little bit of a dividend, just shy of 2%. We are basically bouncing off of the 37s, and then we have another support down here at 34s. So it doesn't surprise me, Kroger again retesting the 37s here. We saw a retest here, and then now basically the stock is just basically bouncing off of the 37s, and we'll see if the stock is going to move a little bit higher. And as you can see, just looking at the chart from back in 2015-16, we see we're really at an area where the stock could be overstretched, but this might be a play where I might just kind of average down if we do see a bit of a pullback, and we'll get a little bit higher of a dividend and then take the capital gains. Currently not up too much, only up about 59 bucks. I did buy a little bit more, but nothing crazy currently moving forward. The only thing that I really started adding a bit to, like I had said in my last video, was I did add a bit more, as you can see, both to NUSI as well as JEPI. And these were the two other ETFs that really had a really nice dividend. This one a 7.4 currently at that price, 7.4, JEPI paying 6.8. And like I said, my overall portfolio primarily revolves around dividend paying stocks. And so the stocks that typically pay a bit higher, 6-7%, I don't put in as much as the other one, which is why my portfolio is fairly diversified just for the sake of pullbacks. And of course, this primary purpose of this stock, where I will pause, will be around the 500 a month, which is my goal. My goal for this year, I'm hoping to hit by June, is to be about 500 a month in dividend cash flows. And then that's when I'll start saving my money for, hopefully by then I'll be done with my contract. I'm doing a contract on another hospital. And so that'll give me more than enough funds to finish this project and then move forward with the next project, which is to buy some real estate abroad. As I said before, my goal is to move to Colombia eventually, and then just kind of do some traveling back and forth for some contract work, and then buy some farmland and either start perhaps maybe banana fields or grow cocoa or something of that nature. That's basically the goal. And then of course have a little bit of real estate for living, obviously, and of course for renting out, just to be diversified, while of course maintaining my portfolio. And then I'll move forward, moving this portfolio from 100K up to 250K, and then just basically just dumping everything from that point on, either into the business or into growth portfolio. This is basically where we're currently at with the rest of this portfolio. I don't think I have made any more changes to the portfolio. I did buy maybe a little bit here and there, but nothing crazy. I did add a little bit more to BGS, probably an additional 125 or somewhere around there. Still holding, of course, food stocks like Tyson. I did add a little bit to Abivite. I think I added like 100 and something to Abivite. Nothing really crazy. And I think if I added to anything, it would be primarily my food stocks. I believe you can see I added a little bit more to KHC. And of course, I added a little bit more to GSK. GSK, the last one that we will be talking about, still holding GSK. As you can see, we are still holding here above 37.50. We obviously held above 36s, and now we're holding the 200-day moving average. And so our next area of resistance is going to be $42. And of course, currently at its current price, it pays about a little over 5% dividend. I bought it down here, so maybe around 5.5% is where I'm at. Again, basically every stock has opportunity for growth, but overwhelmingly every position that I have is poised for income, which is what I'm looking for. You can buy for growth. You can buy, for example, stocks like Apple or Tesla, etc. But I'm looking to hold on to most of these positions over the long haul, and then of course utilize the income that I receive to pay bills or to make other investments moving forward. This is basically the gist of my portfolio. I will leave the link for this particular video. I'm just going to do one more thing here. We're going to take a look at there we go. I'm going to take a look at the portfolio real quick. In the editor, in the dashboard here on the dividend tracker, and you can see currently where we're at. Right, the goal is to get this to 6,000 for the year, and we're currently sitting at 38.51. So I need another 2,200 in annual income to basically hit the 500 a month. So 500 a month is going to be 6,000 annually, and so that's basically the goal, which is why I use the link. I use this tracker so that I can see where I want to add my money, basically obviously what's my highest yielding stock, and I pick opportunities on pullbacks to buy some of these higher dividend yielding stocks, so that basically my yield on cost, as you can see in ORI is paying me almost 11% in dividends, but the yield at the current price is 7.65 before I bought it is almost yielding me 11%. And as you can see, for most of these positions, because of where I got in, you can see ladder currently is only yielding 6.9, but where I am long ladder yielding almost 11%. Very similarly with gain yielding 10%, which is why it's really good to buy many of these positions, try to get them on pullbacks, so that it increases your yield, and so that you get a nice yield for the cost of where you bought these particular pieces, so that it allows you basically to ride them out. If you start to see pullbacks, then you utilize those pullbacks to basically reinvest either your dividends or to add some more money to the pot and basically buy more shares, so that it increases your annual allotment. That's basically going to be it. This video was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. Feel free, of course, to like, comment, and of course subscribe, and leave any comments if you have any particular stocks that you're looking forward to. Feel free to leave it in the comment section, and I'll check you out next time. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great trading week, and we'll be doing an end of the month to see if there's anything moving forward with the next coming week. We'll have to wait and see what happens with some of the news coming out moving forward, but I'll catch you out next time. Thanks for watching. Take care. God bless.